In just 11 days, we will be having the Tesla earnings report. And boy, I can hardly wait. Obviously, I want to see what happens with regard to those margins, and I want to see what happens with regard to energy. And there's a whole bunch of things I want to know on that day. But I look forward more than to the earnings report. I look forward to the call. I know that usually the stock goes down during the call and after the call, and that's sad, but I'm a long-term player anyway. So um, way more information, way more fun is what happens during the call. So what happens during the call is that questions get asked by the public and also by the institutional reporters who come in and get to ask their questions, which are usually fairly banal and not very well informed. So I'm going to have a list here of 20 questions that I think should be asked that day. And hopefully some of those people will read my questions, and maybe somebody will think that my questions, even if they reword them or whatever, are worth putting up that day. And I'd love to hear what your questions are. Could you put your questions down in the list below? And maybe we'll do another one of these later in the week where I put some more of my questions and some of your questions, and we can just add to this list of what we'd like to know that's going on that maybe can and maybe can't be reported by Elon and the team at this point. Anyway, this is Randy Kirk. If you like this kind of content, hit like and hit subscribe, hit notify. Later today, of course, I will have my my normal Sunday night version where I talk about the what's going to happen next week financially, what are the reports that are coming out. Of course, we know CPI, right? The PPI. And anyway, but I'll talk about it in detail and give you some estimates of how I think that'll affect Tesla stock and whatnot. So you might want to hit subscribe and notify so you make sure you see that. And of course, Monday morning and every morning next week, I will have my early morning reporting where I give you the news that's happened overnight, as well as the opening bell, the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, of what's happening first thing in the morning. And so we can make some predictions based on that first few minutes of each day. Anyway, of course, Patreon, lots of folks signing up this week. I'm so glad to have you guys aboard on Patreon. It helps the channel so much. And I'm starting to put up original content there as well, in case you'd like to see that. All right, my number one question. I bet you know what my number one question. I bet you at least know the general subject matter of my number one question. Number one, is Optimus capable of doing useful tasks right now? This is a multi-part question. So you know how you get the follow-up question? Okay. So is he capable of doing, is she capable of doing useful tasks right now? How many different useful tasks? Even kind of what are those tasks? You're advertising to hire somebody right now to design and construct a production line for Optimus. Do you expect mass production of Optimus in 2024? And will you sell to the public, such as factories and similar, in 2024? I know that's really like 5 questions, but it's one basic question. Where are we on Optimus? It is by far the biggest thing that has ever happened to a company ever in history. It is maybe one of the 3 or 4 or 5 biggest things that's ever happened in history. If it is successful, you and I, if you own stock in Tesla, you and I will be rich. That is not investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. But let's face it, if Optimus becomes a thing, Tesla will be so far ahead of anybody else in producing this useful robot that it's just, the sky's the limit. Okay, that's number one. Let's move on. Number 2, the 4680 is critical to the production of semi-truck and Cybertruck, and would be a huge benefit in making Model Ys, making more Model Ys and making more of them with the 4680. Do you have a new prediction of when Austin will hit the 100 gigabyte hour run rate? Sorry, my mouth got all twisted up there. When it will hit 100 gigabyte hours run rate. So we know that when Austin is getting close to hitting the 100 gigabyte whatever, when Austin starts to hit 100, that'll mean that they're ready to also start setting up Reno and setting up Austin and setting up other locations to make these batteries as well, and probably start to go past that number in. I didn't say it right. They'll be able, boy, I'm really messing this one up. they'll be able to start making them in Reno. When Mexico's ready, they'll be able to make them there, and they'll be able to increase beyond the 100 gigabyte hour run rate in Texas. I'll figure out what I'm saying wrong later. I'm sure you'll tell me all about it in the comments below. All right, number 3, you've stated that the semi-truck is much more effective at reducing carbon in the air and particulates than cars are on a pound per pound, on a dollar for dollar, on a battery for battery basis. You've had semi on your product, your picture of products for Master Plan 3, but you never indicated how many you believe Tesla will make. So my question is, how many semi-trucks and large trucks, which is what they call them in other parts of the world, that are similar to semi-trucks in the United States, how many are you thinking that Tesla will make? Those of you who watch the channel know that I think that they'll make 25, they'll shoot for 25%. The world TAM is about 4 million. So 25% would be 1 million a year. Right now, he's only talked about 40 to 50,000 per year. And there's never been a statement by anyone at Tesla that I can find beyond that 40 to 50,000. What is the ramp after they get to 40 to 50,000? So that's that question. Number 4, what is the hardest remaining issue or issues that need to be solved for FSD? Are they specific kinds of edge cases? Or is there anything other than data and massive compute that is needed to get the job done? Is there some other block? Could you explain the block to us? Just for fun. We'd like to know the engineering. We'd like to know the science. We'd like to know what are you up against in order to get this thing done? Are you very sure now that it'll be done this year? Is even your engineering staff now saying it'll be done this year because it is just a matter of lots of data and lots of compute? We'd love to know if that is the answer. Okay. Number 5, do you expect to expand Shanghai and make Generation 3 vehicles in the current factory or nearby the current factory? Or will Generation 3 for Asia and export have to be built elsewhere, someplace else in China? Maybe that's part of what's going to happen in India. Or, we've known that there was an intention to build onto the factory or to build another factory nearby, but what is the plan now? And same kind of question, will Generation 3 vehicles be built in the Gigafactory in Berlin? Love to know that as well. All right, number 6. Now that Dojo is in production, that was what was explained a couple of weeks ago. They're now producing Dojo cabinets, Dojo chips, putting them in the cabinets. Now that it's in production and you have a trend line of where you're going to go with Dojo production, is there a point where there's enough compute that you'll be able and willing to share it with other folks that want that kind of neural net training? When will that happen? When is the point at which you will have enough that you can share it? And when will you decide about turning Dojo loose as a service? Because obviously you've said that's hundreds of billions of potential dollars in profit. All right, number 7, you've stated that the lithium refinery will be operational in early 2024. In fact, they might have even said later this year, but they're talking about the factory will be built and operational, I think, by early 2024. Is that estimate still on track? Jordan of the Limiting Factor estimated that the facility would create value to Tesla in the tens of billions of dollars per year of profit or savings, however you want to look at it. Were his numbers what you are seeing? Is Jordan on point? All right, number 8. In order to produce Megapacks anywhere close to your estimates in Master Plan 3, your capacity would need to come on very, very soon. How many megafactories are you expecting to build between now and the end of 2025? Will they be at similar capacity to Lathrop, or will Lathrop and others be larger capacity over time? I'm thinking that they need to announce at least 1 or 2 more this year, in addition to the 2 that we already know about. I think they should be announcing like 2 per year if they're all going to be the same size as Lathrop. All right, number 9. You haven't put out a cry for any raw materials recently. You haven't asked for nickel. You haven't asked for more lithium refining. Do you think you have now lined up all the various components or refined materials, etc., to reach your Master Plan 3 goals that you've set? Or is there something you still would like entrepreneurs to help you get there? And so let us know today, what are you now crying for? How much, what do you need more of? Okay, love to know if there's anything in the way. Number 10, you think way ahead on all your projects. It's obvious there's just a lot to do between FSD being solved for level 5 and a robotaxi fleet being turned on. You've got regulatory agencies that need to be satisfied. You need an app to be created, and then marketing to the users, marketing to the people that are going to turn their cars into robotaxis. You need how it's going to work in terms of who gets how many dollars. I mean, all that stuff has to be in play. How long do you think it will be between the day you say it's okay to play games while driving and when robotaxi services will begin to roll out? And then how long do you think after that it will be before there is wide coverage in the US? And then how much longer before there's wide coverage worldwide? 3 different questions there. Love to know that. That's, I think, a big question that all of us have. I hear it over and over again. It's not as simple as solving FSD. There's another complex business issue with regard to rolling out a robotaxi network. Okay, number 11. Are there any serious engineering roadblocks to Optimus being able to do fairly complex tasks? Can current iterations of Optimus respond to human commands and talk back? And I mean, talk back no, I don't want to do that. Is that far in the future before Optimus will respond and go back and forth with language? Or is that something that's fairly easily done? Would love to know that. And then about the difficulties of complexity. In other words, complexity would be okay, I can teach it to use a drill as it was shown there. I can teach it to use a drill to go into the same place every time, or maybe even to be able to line something else, something up and drill, put the drill motor in and hit the drill for exactly enough time and until it's tight, etc. I think that's a simple task. I could be wrong, but I think that's a simple task. But a more difficult task might be to recognize that there's something wrong on the line and turn to somebody and say, hey, there's something wrong on the line, or to go get a box and put the box down in front of you, start picking up the items, put them in the hole, and then put the drill and drill it in, and then repeat that function. And then, or maybe there's a question of quality control, also doing quality control at the same time, or having a finished product, taking the finished product and putting it on a conveyor belt, or putting it into a box, putting multiple of the finished product into a box. Those are, to me, those are more complex tasks. Are those the kind of things that Optimus is already doing or is very close to being able to do? That's what I'd like to know. All right, and then number 12, the total US sales of Model Y are heavily concentrated in California. Do you personally believe that the Model Y will eventually have the same kind of penetration throughout the US as it now does in California? Because if it does, the 1.6 or 7 million that they'll probably sell this year and next could easily go to 3 million or more if you start to see this kind of penetration of the Model Y throughout the United States. I think that's what's going to happen. It's not atypical for things that start in California to now move across the US. I'm just curious what their marketing people are telling them about that potential. Number 13, if the Model 3 Highland is a huge success, where will new lines be established to respond to those sales? Will that be in Austin? Will that be somehow in Fremont? I don't know where they would put them. Will that have to wait until Mexico? Will it be in Berlin? Will it be in Shanghai? That they add on somehow to the lines? Will they be able to make more in the existing lines? Is that how it'll work? So what you do if it's a big success, and then part 2 of that same question is, same question is Model Y. If the US Heartland has plenty of opportunity for more penetration of Model 3s as well, wouldn't that create a massive need for additional Model 3s? Okay, number 14, have you picked a reveal date yet for the Highland and a handover date for Cybertruck? Do we know when will we have a reveal on the new Highland, and when will you hand over the first Cybertrucks? Are those dates established yet? When will those announcements come? Are they coming soon? Anyway, okay. Number 15, will Highland Fremont and Highland Shanghai be the same? I am the first one that I know of to suggest that maybe there would be a different vehicle made in Shanghai than the one made in Fremont. There's always been this issue of having a design studio in Shanghai that may want to design the Model 3 a little differently for the Chinese and the Asia and the export market than the one that's being done in Fremont for the US market. Well, anyway, we'll see. But that's the question. Is it going to be different or the same? Here's one that's just a personal one. Will you ever make a Model 3 plaid version? Because I want one. Okay. Anyway, number 17. Are you going to increase the rate of expansion of the supercharger network? So right now we know it's like 10,000 units, I think 10,000 per month, or maybe it's more than that now, but it seems like you're making a lot more cars, and now you're inviting all these other folks to come into the supercharger stations. Won't you need to dramatically increase the number of supercharger stations and the number of chargers in these stations? Okay, just curious about that. Now here's one. Number 18, are you working on a solution for charging cars that includes apartment dwellers? Now, I know there's a lot of different ways to do this in terms of apartment buildings, but there needs to be something. I would think that governments would be motivating apartment owners to put in charging systems in their buildings where there is parking inside the building, or in a lot next to the building. So and when I say encourage, I'm thinking, requiring. So one way or the other, whether there is some kind of incentive by Tesla, some kind of incentive by government, or some kind of disincentive by government, we need to get charging to be in apartment buildings so that it becomes easier for apartment owners to own Teslas, and especially with the Gen 3s coming out. Okay, number 19, will Cybertrucks be exported around the world? Do you expect to offer some other pickup truck in the future? Will you make a smaller version of the CT of the Cybertruck, or will you make a different kind of pickup truck? There's millions and millions of folks around the world that drive something like a pickup truck that the Cybertruck is just too big, especially in Europe and other places where the roads are so small and so curvy. Anyway, so that's just my question. Number 20. Will you be offering a low-cost version of FSD for those who don't wish to put their cars into the Robotaxi system? This came up last week. Again, I think this channel is the first one to ask the question. I mean, we're not going to put our car into the Robotaxi network. I can tell you right now. We might put, if we buy the truck, which we do have an order in, if we buy the truck, we might turn around and put the Model Y into the Robotaxi network. But for the truck, we would want to have the FSD, but we're not going to want to pay $50, $60, $80, $100,000 for it. So will there be some way to buy it where it's a non-business version so that maybe it's $10,000 or $8,000 for folks that just want to use it for putting around town and not for the Robotaxi system? All right. Those are my 20 questions. I want to hear your questions. I want to know what you think about my questions. I want to know if you have any answers to my questions. Let me know what I want to add to this, and then we'll do another video. If there's enough cool new questions, I'll do another video next week, and we'll add to this list. And then if you haven't watched it, because not many people have, unfortunately, I'm not sure why, but maybe everybody was just out playing today, but Larry Goldberg and I talking about Cathie Wood's monthly analysis of the economy, it got okay views, but nothing like I'm expecting these days. So if you haven't seen that yet, there's the card. You can go look and take a look. You do want to spend the time to see that particular video. So if you like this particular episode and you haven't hit the like button yet, please hit it. Hit subscribe, hit notify if you want to be reminded about my program later tonight. There might even be one in the afternoon too, but probably just the one tonight that'll be talking about all the financial news that's coming out next week. We're going to be talking, of course, a lot about the CPI and the PPI. So you're going to want to hear what do I think is happening with all of that. And then tomorrow morning, of course, we have the regular right after the bell is when we record that show. And for those of you who have not yet come on Patreon, this is a great time to try it. It's free. You get 7 days for nothing. Get to try it. You get to see the videos I've already put up that are exclusive to Patreon. And then I'm thinking I'm going to try to do about 2 or 3 a week exclusive to Patreon. Okay, that's all I have. That's it. There's no more. And